What is the forgotten adoption option? Many are aware of infant international adoption, where you hire an agency, often wait a long time, and spend tens of thousands of dollars. And then there's becoming a foster parent, where you may or may not adopt the children. But there is a third option, where you adopt children directly from the foster care system. I call this the forgotten adoption option. In fact, 30% of children currently in foster care are adoptable, and you don't need to be a traditional foster parent to adopt them. Hi there, I am Marcy Bursack. After blogging my experience adopting a pair of biological siblings through the foster care system, people started asking me to explain the process to them. And it's difficult to navigate, but the families I mentor feel that knowing the barriers, the challenges, and what to expect has actually helped them persevere and pursue their dream of adopting. And while I would love to have a really big family, adopting thousands of children isn't exactly realistic, but I can teach others how. Whether you're trying to figure out how to get started, you're battling some doubts and fears, or maybe you know someone who wants to adopt, I'm here with resources to help others discern if foster care adoption is the path for them. And if it is, I have practical tips and resources for them as well. You can find all of these resources, which include my blog, 3 books, an app, and a classroom lesson at ForgottenAdoptionOption.com. However you found this podcast, I am so glad that you did. I want to extend an invitation to you to reach out to me to ask anything on your heart. My goal is to help every waiting child be in their forever family. And that's why I host this podcast. Welcome to the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast. In this episode, we will talk about what it's like being adopted as a teenager by talking with someone who was adopted as a teenager. Hi, Alana.
Hi, Marcy.
I am so thrilled to have this conversation. Alana's story is one I hope occurs more and more often. The adoptive parent perspective, her story was actually shared by her adoptive mom, Robin, in season 1. So you can hear both sides of the story for this one, which is powerful. And I'm so delighted to have Alana here as a guest to share her personal experience about being adopted as a teenager. I strongly believe that children that are adopted through foster care, they should be the ones to tell their own stories if and when they want to. And Alana said, yes, I will. So this is her choice, and you're hearing it firsthand. I think that's a really critical part of how we hear from kids who have been in the system. So Alana, let's start by introducing you to our listeners. Can you kind of tell us how life is today, marriage, children, all the good stuff there?
I am married to my husband of, oh my goodness, you put me on the spot, 8 years. And we have 2 kids, my daughter who will be 14 tomorrow, and my younger daughter who is 9.
You've got kids and you've got a husband and you've got a job and...
Yeah, full-time job. My kids are a full-time job, but I work for a surrogacy agency, and I also work security part-time. So kind of fun for concerts, and my kids get to go to all the concerts, so that's always fun.
Well, that's neat. Is there a particular concert that you were this was the coolest?
Oh my gosh, there's been so many, but I really like Depeche Mode. So yeah.
You lucky got to be there, man. Okay, so we're gonna rewind when you're younger, because from what your mom Robin shared in season 1, you were at a group home with other girls, and I'm wondering, is that where your foster care story begins?
No. So I was put in foster care when I was 4 for the first time. And then I was sent back to my biological mom. And then I was put back into foster care, I believe, when I was 6.
Yeah. So you had a peppering of, you were in care, went back home, in care, went back home, in care, went back home. Can you tell us, so there's so much there. Did you maintain a relationship with those foster homes? What was it like living in a group home?
So, like I said, I got moved around quite a bit. When I first went into foster care, several different families. I had a lot of emotions, a lot. I don't know if it's more or less than other kids my age, but so I got moved around quite a bit, and then I ended up in a foster home with a single mom. She was a private school teacher, and so I was fortunate enough to be going to private school while she was a teacher there, and she went through a lot with me. just a lot. I give her a lot of credit. Amazing lady. I still keep in contact with her now. I used her for references and things like that. But she is great with babies. She's great with little kids. She's not as great with teenagers. And so when I turned 12-ish, that time frame in my life where, no, puberty hit and things go on, it just we couldn't work that out. And I wasn't ready. She was ready. I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is all those years I had called her by her first name, and she wanted me to call her mom. And I just never, I wasn't ready to do that. And so that was like, for me, almost like the start of it. Like I felt like I had to do that in order to be there in a sense. And it's kind of a weird, and I know that probably wasn't the case. I think that's just how I felt about it.
It really sticks up. Kind of dig us and then there, Alana, because I'm thinking there are probably some people listening that are thinking, oh, but she wanted you to call her mom. Like what, just so we can understand the perspective of you and other children that are in foster care, like what would you have wanted that to have? Like, did you want choice in that? I know for my kids, we met and brought them back home. And on this long drive, we actually said like, hi, we're Nathan and Marcy. You can call us Nathan and Marcy. You can call us mom and dad. You can call us whatever. What would you prefer? And they both called us by our first name. So my kids called me by my first name for a really long time until we officially adopted. And they were like, "You're mom." But then for a while, I was Mommy Marcy. So I'm curious, like, what would have set better with you that maybe wouldn't have been such a turn off?
Maybe the choice. I don't think she really wanted to give me a choice at that time. And rightfully so. She had me from a very young age, and for what, like 7, 8 years old, and then all the way up till I was 12, 13. So, um, you know, she probably deserved the title. I just wasn't ready. And
emotionally, it sounds like you weren't feeling that.
It's no, like and I
someone like your boyfriend or I love you. It's like those words are so powerful.
Yeah, and she is like I said, an amazing lady, not the most affectionate person. And even to this day, I am not a super affectionate person. I'm not like the first person to go in and give you a hug, but it doesn't mean I don't love you or anything like that. It's just that I didn't have that. So for me, like going and making that change was just really sudden, and I wasn't ready. I didn't have those answers that I with my biological mom, so I already had a mom. So, and granted, she wasn't the best mom and definitely not a good role model, but I wasn't ready. And
but you already knew someone else already had that title. So you were like, excuse me, no, like,
yeah. So she tried to legally adopt me. I told her no, because again, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for my name change. I wasn't ready to be that person. And so we settled on legal guardianship, because at that point, the foster care agency pretty much said, we have to do something. You've been here, you need to be either adopted or legally like guardian, something has to happen. And I think for me, ever since that point, it was really a downward spiral. It was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not ready for this. You can't make me do this. But they could in a sense. So they did. And then from there, I pretty much ran away and was like, I'm not doing this. And foster agency was like, well, okay, well, we don't really have any options for you, so we're just going to put you in the group home. And so that's where I ended up. And it's not even really a group home. It's this big, huge campus that's out in the middle of nowhere up in Ojai, California. And there's cottages, and you're separated by age and gender. Boys are on one side of the campus and girls on the other side. And like I said, it's just this big, huge campus in the middle of nowhere. And you're as remote can be. There's nothing around anywhere.
How many girls were in your cottage?
Oh gosh. It's been so many years.
Because you were saying it wasn't a group home. So I think of a group home being like a dozen or more in one setting. Did you have a really small number?
No, no, no. It was, I would say, at least 20, if not
In your
more.
cottage. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
They
Okay.
were big cottages. Yeah. And two girls per room. So,
So you had like a
yeah.
roommate. Did you get you were in bunk beds or did you have your own like area? Do you remember?
Um, Oddly enough, I say two people to one room, but they put me, I think in the beginning, maybe they saw me as a risk. So they put me in my own room. I think I was cutting at the time, drinking a lot, and just trying to really just tune out life, so to speak. And so I was going through a lot, and I think they just wanted that extra like watch on me. So they didn't put me with the roommate. They didn't know. I don't think really knew what to expect. So
You've gone
um,
through a lot. Wow. Like, and it's
yeah,
interesting to hear your journey in that is okay. This is like, I didn't want this. I said no. And in my head, I heard a listener, which isn't really there, right? But I was like, gasp. They're like, why would she say no? Like, doesn't she want to be adopted? But it's like, if you're not emotionally there, I mean, do you have anything you want to speak into people that maybe they're even fostering right now or they're thinking about this? Like, that might happen to them that the kid is like, it's not mutual, folks. Do you have any advice of how, like, that's okay for it not to be mutual?
I think it's just keeping that, the door open, the communication open. And I feel like, and I will reiterate this, my foster mom was amazing. She was a great person. Um, Communication and affection and those things are not her best suits. Um, she can love on a baby all day, but connecting and relating to teenagers wasn't her thing. And I think I could sense that. And so there was always that kind of, I don't know how to quite describe it, but
Just the
just
connection, it sounds like wasn't there.
disconnect.
Just yeah,
Mm-hmm.
understand. And so many of
So
the
I think just keeping your options open, just knowing that they might not be ready, and it has nothing to do with you as a parent. It has to do with that child being ready and their experience and what they're going through. And to top it all off, I mean, especially that age, you have puberty going on, which is like ridiculous just for a regular, normal teenager that hasn't gone through all these extra emotions and feelings. And um, I think it was kind of like all coming back again, like reliving it all over again. So,
mm.
uh, yeah, I think just keeping the doors open, keeping communication open, finding a way to connect and not, you know, forcing the issue.
I appreciate you sharing the honesty of that because I think there's some real life in that. There's, we can go online and Google stories, but like this was your perspective and this is what happened to you. And I think sometimes when older children get adopted, we think of like movies where there's like a scene and the kid gets to be in the same room as like these future parents and interview them and they interview the kid. What was your journey like in connecting with your forever family?
So, I actually met my parents through a girls' youth group that my mom was running at the time. And I say my mom because she's my mom now, and that's what it is. But um, she was doing the youth group, and at this whole time, I was still living with my foster mom. And I was cutting and doing all the things that my foster mom didn't approve of. And she didn't quite know how to handle those type of things either. And I think in a sense, my parents didn't either. They were like, well, we don't know, how to deal with that either. But that connection was there. I met her first, not as a mom. I met her first as a friend and somebody that I could talk to outside of my world that I was in, and somebody that, I could be honest with. Um, Whereas I couldn't or didn't feel like I could be at home. So when I ran away and went and they put me in the youth home, the group home, they had, I don't know honestly how or who reached out. I believe it was probably my therapist and or the social worker that reached out to my parents and were like, hey, would you be willing to take her in? And my parents were like, we're not foster parents. This is not something we even thought about doing or really want to do, but maybe. And so I'm not sure on their end how it really all ended up coming to fruition, but for me, it was going from somebody that was a friend to, okay, wait a minute, I think I'm moving with you guys, or at least going on vacation with you and seeing where this goes.
So it was a very different connection and relationship with them.
Yeah. And it wasn't a parental relationship at all in the beginning. And I think that helped in a lot of ways because to me, parents were, no, you can't do this. Yes, you can do this. They're very much about control. And I was so out of control in my life that it's just, yeah, I didn't know how to figure out which way was right side up in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Having more of like a mentor as a parent ended up really working for you, especially because there wasn't like a formal relationship there. It wasn't like legally they have authority over you. Is they genuinely, she was pouring into you through this group at church. That's really interesting to learn about. And so for some of our listeners that are adults that maybe have a heart to adopt, they might think, okay, my next step is to get licensed. And part of that process is we get to determine, and I know you and I had talked offline before the interview about how like going through this process, you get to pick like what age range you're kind of thinking of. And some people, like I think for my husband and me, we set up to like age 10 just because of where we were and like where our peer groups were and some other factors there. And so I'm wondering, because some people think, oh my goodness, caring for a teenager, that's so daunting. Like, I don't know if I can. And some others are like, I got that, no big deal. Can you share like what you needed and wanted from a family that might help people understand, like, am I the kind of person that could do that?
Well, I mean, really, I needed stability, but and I know my foster mom was willing and giving me that. She gave me the stability, I guess. So maybe what I really needed was the emotional stability. Someone to say, you know what, I'm here for you. I'm not here because I'm your parent. I'm here because I actually care. And I want you, the best for you. And I felt like because there was not that parental figure initially started, that's how I was able to connect with my parent, and more so my mom in the beginning. And it's kind of interesting because I have never had a dad in my life, like ever. My foster mom was a single mom. So I never had any issues with my dad. And I wouldn't say any, but I had way less issues with him than I did with anybody else because I never had a father figure. I didn't have any negative images in my mind about dad being a negative figure, like to look up to. It was always women. Women were like my, I didn't quite relate to them as much or didn't want to. And so I think that was part of, the issue too. So I think just really finding an age group that works for you. And it's also okay to say, you know what, this isn't working. Let's try something different. And being open. I think you really have to be open and just not expect anything in a sense and have no expectations. I think when you set expectations, then kids can feel that in a lot of ways and know, oh, wait, I'm supposed to call them mom and dad, or wait, I'm not supposed to call them mom and dad, or, I'm walking into this house. I don't know what to expect as a foster kid. You don't know anything. You're like, you don't know if you're going to be there 2 nights or 6 years, what it ended up being for me and that for the first home. But I think just keeping your options open and
And maybe not controlling the child is kind of what I'm taking away from that too, like giving you space and support at the same time.
Yeah, so I would say like giving choices. You know what? And even if it's something as basic, what would you like for dinner tonight? Would you like apples or pears? You're still making a choice as an adult that there are 2 options, but you're still giving the child a choice. They feel like they're in control of the situation a little bit, even though you've already set that you're only offering those 2 things. But it doesn't feel quite so restrictive, I guess. And then finding a way to connect to that child or a child. For me, I am not great with communication. like right off the bat. And the only way that my parents could get through to me was writing. There were some days I think I probably didn't talk at all, refused to talk, shut down, and would just be in my room, not want to talk to anybody, anything. And my mom would write me a letter, and I would write her back a letter, and that's how we communicated. And that was it. But I think those letters were, well, I don't think, I know that those letters probably are what changed my life completely, because she is like, you know what, she's not talking to me, but I'm going to write her what I'm feeling. And then I could write back what I was feeling, because I couldn't say what I was feeling out loud. I think if it was out loud, then it was more real. But so I think finding that connection that works for that child.
Great insight. One of the things that sticks out from when your mom, Robin, did her podcast interview is she shared that when she and your dad went to pick you up from the group home, that there was a line of girls that were asking them to be adopted, like, will you adopt me too? And I'm curious, have you kept contact with any of the other girls?
No, not anymore. But I will say, interestingly enough, when I was about 23, well, so I got married when I was 21 to my first husband, and that marriage was very, very, very short-lived. And again, not ready. My biological mom had come back into my life, and that was a whole nother, like, let's, rehash all of those feelings and emotions, then trying to work out a marriage that I wasn't ready for. We were both too young for. So right after I got divorced, I went back down to Southern California with my foster mom that I lived with for many years. And I actually stayed with her again for a few months, and I got a job at the group home where I was going to. And I worked at the cottages there for the teenagers. And it was kind of one of those full circle moments for me, being able to give back to those kids. I did the same thing that my mom did with me. I started journals with each of the girls, and they would write something, and I would respond and give it back to them, and then they would write, and we just kind of kept journals back and forth. And a couple of the girls that I did that with, I think I don't know, but I like to think that they made different choices in their life and had a little bit better, felt like they were able to get a little bit more out than maybe they wouldn't have before. And I was going through all my stuff. Yeah. Going through all my stuff, and I came across some of those journals, and I was reading them recently, and I was like, wow, this is, I don't know, it was really cool. Really cool to go back and look at that and share some of the really deep stuff that they shared with me. So
yeah, and you did it in a way like it worked for you, and so it just kind of was second nature to. That's really a neat approach. That's neat that you were able to like love on them in a way that was approachable.
Yeah, I mean, I know how hard it is for me to talk about things that are super emotional or super deep, and there are things that we don't necessarily want people to know all of our bad stuff to our side, the bad side of our stuff. But so yeah, it was kind of cool that I was able to, like you said, go back and be able to do the same thing for them, and I hope make a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, sounds really therapeutic. So, as we were preparing for this interview, you told me that you and your husband are hoping to begin getting licensed to become foster parents. And I'm wondering, having gone through the system yourself, what motivation, like what's behind inspiring this desire?
So we actually just got licensed just today, Tuesday, 2 days ago.
Amazing.
I know it is. It's cool. It's different. It's going to be a different journey. And, but I will say this, that the biggest inspiration was my parents only ever took me in, and they never did any other fostering outside of that before, after, or during. But they made a difference in my life, and therefore my kid's life, and therefore my husband's life, and everybody else. So even if it's just one child that you're making that their whole entire world. And I'm trying not to get emotional about it, but I think that the most important is just being that person for that kid. even if it's just one kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And my husband often says, so his grandfather was orphaned when he was 7. And when I came out with my first book and the whole motivation behind these podcasts, Alana, my husband says, if it helps one kid like Grandpa Stam, like if that's all we do with all of the effort into the space, that's one more kid, that's one kid that gets to experience love and support and to grow up. And I love that that's from your own experience. That's also like resonating with you. And so as we close, I want to invite you to be a voice for waiting children. And I'm really excited to ask you to do this. I'm wondering what message you want to share with our listeners on behalf of the children that are waiting to be adopted. Like, what do you think they would tell our listeners if they had the opportunity to speak up for themselves?
Well, a lot of times they don't speak up for themselves. So it's really taking a chance on that child, finding a way to connect, and again, just being open and being available, and just, I don't know. It's hard because kids don't feel like they have a voice. And especially, I think, in foster care, they're told who they're going to go with. They're told where they're going to be. They're told they're going to go to this school. They're told they're going to, be moved tomorrow night, or sometimes they're not even told, they're just moved. And so there's not a lot of choices, there's not a lot of options, there's not a lot of what do you want with your life. And so I think really it's just being there for them is the number one. They don't have anybody that's consistent, and so I think that consistency is really important. That stability is really important. Yeah.
Thank you for speaking from your heart. I think that's powerful and gives us something all to chew on and think about. I often say that foster care adoption is not a financial question. It's a heart question. And I think you just really hit that on the head, that like, are you willing to understand that this child just wants to be seen and wants to be cared for and given choice? And so, Alana, I really appreciate you being open to sharing your own story. I think you've shared with us some really good firsthand nuggets, and I treasure the fact that you trust us to hear your story. And if it helps someone else maybe consider this route or encourages someone that's waiting to be adopted, I think that that's pretty powerful. So thanks for being on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Listeners, did you know that you've helped the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast rank in the top 30% most followed podcasts on Spotify? You are helping waiting children be seen, and you're teaching our nation how to adopt these children. You can help this podcast reach more future adoptive parents by leaving a review and continuing to share this podcast with others. You can even help others know that instead of Googling to try to figure out how to adopt, they should go to ForgottenAdoptionOption.com, where they can learn the step-by-step process, tips for enduring the journey, and I even have a children's book to celebrate the forever families all around us. It means so much that you took the time to listen to this episode. And on behalf of the 113,000 children who each has a name, a story, and dreams, and deserves to grow up experiencing the love and support that is found in a forever family, I thank you so much for caring.